just across Lake Lugano in Switzerland. The scene is the World Cycling Road Race Championships for elite riders. That's the old term for the big race, the Professional Road Race Championship of the world. It's October the 13th. I'm Phil Liggett, and October the 13th, I'm sure, unlucky for some, and certainly lucky for one rider today. There's the weather situation, 13 degrees. Well, that's somewhere in the region approaching 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun expected to shine most of the day. The organisers are lucky if it does, because at this time of the year, of course, here in Switzerland, there could be snow. The course, it's 16.8 kilometres a lap, 15 laps for all of the riders today, those that make it, and 2 climbs on it. Camano and Brenganzona is the finish of the Crespira climb, and remember, that was the famous climb that springboarded Fausto Coppi to his victory here way back in 1953. And there's the field, the professionals, a little bit jaded, I think, coming to a World Championship at this time of the year. This is the way now, bringing the World Cycling Championship out to the end of the season. That says it all, doesn't it? Alex Zülle having a nice yawn, his job perhaps done already, having given Switzerland a world title earlier this week in the time trial at the expense of the British rider Chris Boardman. Another world champion of years gone by in Colorado Springs, in fact, Gianni Bugno, showing a return to form, and the Italians always treat the world title race as a most important happening. They've said they want 3 men in every move. Well, I wonder if they can get such a number. Who would know? Spain without Miguel Indurain, but of course with the defending world champion Abraham Olano, and in fact Olano early in the week had decided not to ride the World Road Race Championship in defence of his crown, won last year in Colombia. But after a poor ride in the time trial, he's changed his mind. He's here, and as the time approaches 10 o'clock, we'll see if in fact he can put in a great defence of his title. Well, the gun is up. Nervous moments, because nowadays with elite cyclists there are some developing amateur riders of note in the field, as well as the established top riders on the big pro teams. Some seeking one good ride to secure a big contract, others hoping for that ride to keep their contract for next season. There's a lot of movement on the transfer market as the field sprints away to what is quite a difficult circuit today. We've already had some very good racing on it, including the women's road race, where Switzerland got the women's world champion in Barbara Hieb. And also we've had the under-23 World Championship, where the Italians wiped out everybody with the top 4 places, and Figueras was the winner there. There's the course, 15 laps, 252 kilometres. It's going to be a long day in the saddle for those with ambition. Magnificent crowd here, the Swiss pouring out to the roadside. Many of them, of course, Italians, because they've just nipped over the border. The Italians in this Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, I think, are going to feel very much at home today, as the tempo has started quickly. 2 riders immediately going on the attack, as we get another glimpse of the route. Remember the 2 climbs. The first climb is Camano, the top coming at 3 kilometres. The second climb is the Crespira, the top at 12 kilometres. And straight out on the attack, perhaps France, using their least experienced rider here, Benoit Solmont, to launch an attack and try and draw the sting of a few. With him is Andrei Zinchenko, who turned pro back in 1994, and he's 24 years of age. There's the peloton. Not surprisingly, in these early laps, too worried about the expected fodder attack, shall I call them. But the pace is good. It's very nippy indeed. Early speed indications, it's already up to 40 kilometres an hour. That's 25 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. And what a great start for Olano, the number 1 defending world champion. There's a little smile on his face there. I don't know whether the crowd are actually saying something, but sure, they're lucky. Look at the way they're taking the pictures here. I bet they never thought the defending world champion would stop on the doorstep so early on in the title. No big panic. Wheel change. Olano knows these early stages. A man of his ability shouldn't be in too much difficulty to rejoin the race. Not so for some of the smaller riders in their first World Championship, who may panic and chase back a little bit too quickly and not rejoin the peloton. Anyway, he's off and riding. His teammates, I note, are slipping out the back of the field to help him back. And the gap going up very quickly on these opening laps. 1 minute 46 seconds now for Solmont and Zinchenko. Here comes Olano. And in fact, I said his teammates were dropping out, but I don't see them now, unless he's ridden past them up the climb. but he's back in the peloton. It's been a developing year for Abraham Olano, but he may look like Miguel Indurain, but he's not indicating he's going to be like him as a top bike rider yet. So the field all back together with the exception of a couple. Tony Rominger, the champion of Switzerland, in the Swiss national colours there on the front of the race. And the great Rominger, having lost his world hour record to an absolutely brilliant Chris Boardman. The field over the top of the climb, stringing out, but no big effort here at the moment. The gap, they've lost a little bit on the climb, have Salmon and Zinchenko. Salmon, he turned pro last year, in fact. He's only 22. He is on a French team determined to succeed here today, and as the young whippersnapper of the squad, he's been told to go out front and set the pace and just see what will happen. Zinchenko, 24, turned pro the year before in 1994. They've gone away right from the gun today. Gianni Bugno showing signs of a return to form. You never quite know where you are with Gianni. He's great, he's indifferent, and sometimes he is absolutely useless. And it does annoy his spectators and his fans. The press, of course, he's always falling out with them because of things they say about Gianni. But one thing is for certain, this man has an immense amount of talent. Alberto Elli comes up and gives him a hand too. They're trying to just keep the tempo here, which is a very fast one, just to limit the escape. Italians always ride to a strict plan, but very often for the Italians the World Championships does go wrong. Last World Champion they had was Gianni Bugno himself. He picked up the title way back now in 1992, at least it seems way back. Of course, defending his title he won in Stuttgart in 1991. And as we watch the riders here on the steeper of the two climbs, the Crespira, brings back memories. I wasn't there, by the way, in 1953 when Fausto Coppi, the great Italian Campionissimo, won the world title here in Lugano by 6 minutes and 22 seconds ahead of the Belgian duo Germain de Rijke, and at 7.5 minutes came the great Stan Ockers. But there was no doubt who the real champion was that day, Fausto Coppi. Well, the race has moved on now as we are approaching the climb here. We are on lap number 8, and for over 125 kilometres those two riders have been out in front, but it's been the steady tempo riding, largely by the Italians, to regain control of this World Championship. The Spanish, you can see them in second and third place here, are watching every move, but they're banking on Olano, I think, today. Salmon knows that it's all over, but Zinchenko is going to just try and make the agony last that little bit longer. Salmon is going to wait as the field freewheel down as we move into now what is the action. In fact, that breakaway of two, apart from set of tempo which will have shed a few riders, hasn't really done a lot of damage out there today. The French were not evident in defending for Salmon at all. They've hid themselves always in the top 10, keeping an eye on the action but not doing anything specifically. And now the field has wiped them all out. And that looks like the arm of Motorola rider Axel Merckx that's gone up here. He's calling for Dad to see if he'll pop along and speak to his son, because the great Eddie Merckx, who is still as big an enthusiast as he ever was in cycling, is the director sportif or manager of the selection team for Belgium, although he's threatening to pack it all in at the end of this year. There he comes. What's up, son? The nice thing about Eddie is he's never pushed Axel Merckx into being a cyclist, but Axel himself wanted to be, and this year, of course, he's won his first race. There was no one happier than his father. In fact, when he did win that race, Paul Schoen and myself did ring up Eddie Merckx and congratulate him on Axel's victory, and Eddie was a little bit high on champagne, and yet he knew every move done by Axel Merckx, how he'd won it, where he'd attacked, how the wind was blowing. His enthusiasm is unbelievable. Now you see, in fact, on the front here now, we've got Tony Rominger, and he's really causing a little bit of pain. The race is coming together, and we are at the end of lap number 8. Rominger takes them through a long route, the little man that made himself quite famous in this year's Tour de France. In second place, Fernando Escartin of Spain. He was the rider went to in third. And I think it was Marco Fincato of Italy through there in fourth. And the Giro d'Italia winner, Pavel Tonkov, right up there too. He's riding, of course, in his national colours for Russia. Always difficult. This is the only time of the year when we get to commentate on riders wearing their national jerseys rather than their racing team strip. Although rules have relaxed over the years now, because as you can see, the professionals still carry their advertising, but in the old days you weren't allowed to say who your sponsor was. But now the pressure is getting on a little bit at the front of the race here. Fincato is setting it. As they're all packing on the climb again, as we're now moving on to the 9th lap, and over the top of the hill once more, and this is Fabian Jecker. Season marred right out at the beginning of the season with a crash in March, now trying to salvage something from the event. Well, overall, of course, it's 15 laps, but any time now you would expect somebody to try and get away from the field. It's been a very fast pace. Very few laps have dipped inside. 37 kilometers an hour. There's the average so far, 38.410. It's a very quick speed indeed. And a lot of riders sensing that the pressure is on here and the place is at or near the front. The white jersey of Max Chiandri also near the front. Had an excellent Olympic Games in third place. The Olympic champion, by the way, Pascal Richard, hasn't started, and despite the fact the race is here in his hometown or home country of Switzerland, but I think mentally he's done for the season. He's got his gold medal in the Olympic Games, and to re-prepare for the world title just wasn't on for him. Times are changing now, of course, with the Olympic Games open to all cyclists, not just the amateur riders. And so now, for the first time, we can have an Olympic champion and a world champion. And one day, I wonder, we'll probably get the same man winning both titles. Shaverenko also watching near the front. A surprising rider, keeps coming up with the results. Rode terrifically well in Paris Tours. Wiped out after a long breakaway, almost in sight of the line. In fact, he was in sight of it because it's a long finishing straight in Tours, but he couldn't get there quick enough, and the brilliant timing of the peloton gave it back to the sprinters. Minali was the winner there, who's also had a very good season this year. Fabulous sprinter. Came to the fore in 1994 when he won a stage of the Tour de France in Portsmouth in England. Now, a little bit of aggravation starting here. It looks like Ramon Gonzalez Arrieta, number 4 at the back. And it looks like the style of Pascal Hervé of France, rider who rode so well in this year's Tour du Pont. Also grabbed the pink jersey of leader of the Giro d'Italia, albeit for one day this year too. And being joined by an Italian who's just flown up, and it looked to me as though it was Grady. So one or two riders trying to bridge the gap. 4 riders we've got down there. We'll wait for the confirmation of that 4th man. And in fact, it looks like it might be the whole peloton has come back altogether. I think it was Max Chiandri, in fact, who is the 4th man in our picture. But anyway, it's all back together again. Just going through there was Grady, the Italian. And there is Hervé back in the bunch, looking over his shoulder to see if there's any chance of a little bit of help up here. The place is very, very quick indeed. Well, it's turned out to be a marvellous autumnal day here. And that is the list of the leaders of this peloton: Chanteur, Hervé, Grady, Ferregato, Cuesta Lopez. And they, in fact, they've cracked, because this is a group that's gone clear. And there's a lot more riders here than they've just told us, because we've also got here Klaus Moller of Denmark. The other Frenchman is Pascal Chanteur, as well as Hervé. Number 20 is Ferragato, who's had a brilliant end of season, hasn't he, with his World Cup victories. Zuller setting the tempo with Rominger at the front. So the Swiss have got Mauro Gianetti, and there he is on the far side in this leading group, but he is the only Swiss rider, I think, who's made it. Cuesta Lopez is the man setting the pace for Spain. There's Gianetti. Oh no, there's another Swiss rider here, and that is Oscar Camazind of Switzerland. Now this looks to be about a dozen riders to me. Pascal Hervé, strange climbing style, seems to put all his weight in a straight back right through the front of those pedals as he goes up the hill. Adjusting the glasses is Camazin, who seems to have been told by Gianetti perhaps to set the pace. There's Gianetti, and gritting his teeth just behind him there. We've got the Spanish rider, and that is Cuesta Lopez. You can probably hear the crowd as well as I can, but just look at them. They're really enjoying them. The Swiss fighting with the Italians. Lugano getting the championship at a late stage, comparatively so, after a little bit of problems getting the organisation to settle down where the championships will be this year. But here they are. They've made a great job of them, and they've been pretty lucky with the weather. They've had a wet day for the time trial for the men, won by Alex Zuller. But apart from that, the weather has been quite kind. But it's always a risk, and will be for the foreseeable future, to put on these World Championships at a time of the year, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, when you can expect the weather to change quickly. But the gamble certainly has paid off here. The organisation is excellent, and the crowd, as you can see, apparently numbering around 150,000 around the circuit. And you can't complain too much about that, as Camazind is setting a hot pace here. I think he is the man who's been told to go and do something. Keep this speed high. There's some good riders in this breakaway. From France, we've got Pascal Hervé and Pascal Chanteur. From Spain, Cuesta Lopez. The Italians have got Ferragato here, so they wish to put, and Crutini, by the way, but they wish to put 3 in every break. Hasn't quite worked yet, has it? Germany's Kai Hundertmark used to ride for Motorola. Gianetti is along for the ride with Camazind, and he's a danger because, of course, he is almost a local, Gianetti. Denmark have got Klaus Moller and Peter Menetz. And this is the pack. Laurent Dufaux in evidence too with Alex Zuller, but the time gap is building at the minute. Claudio Chiappucci having a little go as well. But the Italians will be a little bit handicapped now, because they have got a good rider in Ferragato up the road. Fabrizio Guidi, for me, is a man that just poised to win something big soon. He's knocking on the door. '95 is Klaus Moller. Somebody's opened the door and left a little bit of a gap, and it'll have to be shut down. We come up behind Grady, who's sitting on the wheel now of Hervé. Klaus Moller, and it looks as though Camazind looking for the rear of the group now. He's been doing a lot of work. Now that really does look like an autumn picture as the riders approach the feeding station. Very difficult for professional cyclists at this stage of the development of the calendar, because the season's starting now really in January, racing all over the southern hemisphere, and by February you've got the traditional races in the south of France, and then you have all of the classic races followed by the 2 big tours, and Italy no longer a race that it can be called a preparation race for the Tour de France. It's a race within its own right. People are saying it's no longer possible to win both. I'm sure someone will prove us all wrong sooner or later. Johan Museo. It's his birthday today, by the way, October the 13th for Johan. His 31st birthday. And he's made the split as well. The only Belgian rider to do so. Giannetti wearing 41. I guess that makes him the leader of the Swiss team. And it would have been nice, I must say, to have seen the American Bobby Julich in this breakaway, simply because he's having such a great end of term. A marvellous Vuelta de España, where he finished as, well, where he was the leader. I think it was for 9 days as the king of the mountains, and then finished 9th overall. So he should have a lot of confidence now. Apparently he's been bombarded with offers to turn pro, but it appears at the start this morning he was speaking to journalists and telling them that he was accepting the offer from Cyril Guimar's team, Cofidis. Clock counting down the time gap. 4 hours 20 now in the saddle. Coming up to the end of lap number 10. Leaving us just 5 laps to go at the feed. Oh, and there's a crash. Zulla's gone down. Alex Zulla has slipped away and caught in the melee there. The French rider Laine Brochard always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Brochard, you remember the crash up behind Jan Zurada in the Tour de France? He went over the top of him there as well. Well, Zulla was the one rider left behind, and I think he's going to go out of the race. So the world champion time trialist is not going to get a chance at the double. The pressure is remaining on here. The Swiss, even though they have Zulla down, continue to push the pace with Karmazin in the front. Probably unaware of the crash at the feed. And this is a fine piece of riding here by Karmazin. Taps out the tempo. Back out onto the climb. Up to Comano again. Claudio Chiappucci starting to run down from being a top cyclist these days. I think age must be catching up at last with the devil, but he's still a very, very popular character indeed. And little Claudio heading up with Tony Rominger sitting behind him, the former world hour record holder now, who intends to attack it again. But to join these World Championships, the UCI, the Union Cycliste Internationale, has decided to limit those famous Superman handlebars, which produced so many world records on the track in Manchester for the World Championships there. The first year, by the way, that the World Championships track and road have been separated. Manchester showing the track, and some unbelievable times recorded in the pursuits, both team, individual, for men and for women. But those handlebars have had their wings clipped, and that, you know, might mean that Tony Rominger will not be able to get back the record that he held for the hour. This breakaway still clear. Hundetmar, Cuesta Lopez, Giannetti, Karmazin, Hervé, Klaus Moller, Johan Museo, Fabrizio Grady. Little chat going on at the back there. And that is Felice Puttini. The other Swiss rider, I think earlier I said he was Italian, but of course Puttini, despite his Italian name, is Swiss. And so the Swiss have got 3 riders in this breakaway. And the Italians have in fact got only Ferragato. So they're hatching a little plan, I think. It really is quite remarkable. This has been the year of the Swiss in many, many ways, having totally eclipsed the Vuelta with the top 3 places. And now Alex Zulla has produced the goods along with Barbara Heed to have 2 world champions from this series here. And now in this breakaway they've got 3 riders. And with Giannetti, of course, he is the man most likely to succeed. He made no secret about the fact he wants to. This great little rider who has a lot of courage on his hands. And I'm pretty sure that the other 2, Puttini and Giannetti, have told Karmazin to set the pace until his legs will take him no further. The lead at the end of the 10th circuit was 1 minute and 59 seconds when we saw Chiappucci there leading through the chase group. The Italians, again, for my money, have made a mistake. You know, there may have been a slight disruption of the tempo as well with the crash by Zulla in the feeding station. But they might feel a little bit compromised now with Ferragato in this front group. The Italian who turned pro back in 1991, but really we came to notice him this year, 1996, when he won the World Cup Leeds Classic, and then he went over and picked up the Grand Prix of Swiss and has become a real challenger in the World Cup race now to Johan Museeuw, with 2 World Cup counting events still to come. The Japan World Cup will close the 11-race series there, and then the other race is the Giro de Lombardia. Laine Jalabert deciding that the strength in the French might not be quite what it should be up in that breakaway with Chanteur and Hervé. Jalabert looking for somebody, itching in fact for somebody to start a reaction, and then he wouldn't get blamed for chasing down his teammates. Nicola Bartoli, another man enjoying a fine season, slipped onto his back wheel. I think it's Dufault of Switzerland who's the marker for the Swiss teammates out front. Three of them trying to bridge the gap, but I don't think they're going to get very far just yet. But there's 4 of them now, and it looks as though this is beginning to be quite a strong race group. Bartoli through in second place, second in the Grand Prix of Swiss, 5th in the Leeds Classic, and of course probably equally great was his 8th place in the Olympic Games, but they were all outwitted there by a very strong breakaway. Axel Merckx is the man who's latched onto the back of those 4 or 3. But Merckx handicapped by the fact that their best man, Johan Museeuw, is in the breakaway. And you know, so talking about Museeuw, we have not seen Museeuw do any work at all in that breakaway. He's either taking the pace a little bit hard or he's working the odds out against him. He's the only Belgian rider in that front group. But the field, Bartoli has checked it out. Dufault, Laine Jalabert, they've jumped onto the back. There goes Merckx, number 53. And the Spaniards, in fact, have brought the race basically together. A little bit of a struggle behind to close the gaps, but they're all coming together. Merckx still looking for a little bit of the action. And back to the feed, and news has reached us now that in fact Alex Zülle did not continue. He's pulled out of the World Championships, but not too seriously hurt. It does seem strange commentating on a world title when the leaves are on the road like this. Karmazin and Museeuw, maybe I did him an injustice. He's right there now, to the right of our picture, bringing the race through. Karmazin briefly slipped back into second place, but not for long. He is definitely the man who's been designated ride until you drop by his teammates. He's doing all of the work here, coming through to the end of lap number 11. As Karmazin takes through Klaus Moller, Kai Undertmark, Mauro Gianetti, Ferragato, Museeuw, Cuesta Lopez, Chanteur. It's about all the eyes could gather in at that time, but they're all there. Kai Undertmark, he made his mark when he turned pro by a fine 5th place in the World Championships. Again, a man who has had big moments but never really been consistent. He rode with Motorola briefly. He's now gone across to Telecom. The last World Championships too for the Motorola riders without their team leader Lance Armstrong. And the field coming through the feed at just on 2 minutes down, more or less. Well, by the time they get to the finish line, it'll be more than 2 minutes. It'll be the best part of 3, because there's still a little ride to the finishing line. And Bobby Julich on the front gets what he wants, his musette for the rest of the ride. Good to see Bobby there, but he'll be very, very upset with himself, I'm sure of that, having missed his breakaway. Another man anxious to see what was in the bag was Max Chandry for the riding in the colours of the British Cycling Federation. There he is on the far right. And now through the finishing line, and yes, the time is slipping away. It's now going to be 2 minutes 41 seconds. So Bobby Julich looking quite a different rider these last few weeks, and it's good to see him developing. All of the Motorola riders that seem to have found themselves contracts with all the top teams around the world, which gives you some idea of the respect that team has held. Very sad indeed to see the loss of the American sponsor, who have been a most gracious sponsor, staying in the sport for 6 years. Well, the Swiss really have had their money's worth, supporting their own champions. And again, it's calm as in, well, if Mauro Gianetti or Puttini do manage to win this World Championship, with Puttini would be something of a surprise. With Gianetti, I suspect he should have been a marked man among many riders today because of his ability. But I think they'll owe a big debt of thanks to the fine riding here by Carmensin, because he's making it very hard for everybody to get across, although there are those who are trying. This looks like Luc Leblanc pushing that huge gear on the climb to try and bridge the gap, but the field are right after him. So they may have made a mistake, and there's still time to find that out with that breakaway, but they're letting no one else go, and this is often the case, of course. They chase down riders, but these little flourishes of activity surely are beginning to eat into the gap of that breakaway. But now they've picked up Leblanc. Quite clearly the French are feeling that their two riders up front are not the men for the job. We've seen Jalabert, we haven't seen Richard Virenque yet. But there's still time. Here's the breakaway. No prizes for guessing who's doing all of the work. In second place is Hundertmark. Third is Gianetti. Then comes Ferregato. Gianetti, by the way, has always been a man for the World Championships, as well as the classic victories he got. He won the Liège-Bastogne-Liège in the Amstel Gold Race last year, but he also took 4th place in the World Championship, as well as a fine 17th place overall in the Tour of Spain. Over the top of the Crespira. There's a nice little bit of work there for the road repairers, by the look of it, after this World Championship goes away. The main field struggling over the top as well, and it looks as though there's a little bit of a splinter group. Massive crowds. And the pressure being applied yet again. This is the chase group, and they're trying now to split up this bunch. And it's the Swiss riders who are pushing the pace. A little bit surprised about that. Axel Merckx is following. There's Rominger on the left of our picture, and Laurent Dufaux. Almost a conversation going on there. Merckx looks over his shoulder to see what's going on. Jalabert is mixing as well. This is a tough one up the climb this time. Little bit of decision time as the top boys pushing these enormous gears as they do in professional racing these days. And the power of that group of very talented bike riders is hurting the peloton. Back with the leaders now. Ferregato swings off to our right. Over the top. Jalabert. And they've got themselves a little gap. Now, can they do something with it? They know the time is running out. They have got to get this race together. And they're trying desperately to get something going here. Chasing the television camera, not the best of ideas, but at the moment it looks as though the camera having a little bit of a problem to get out of range of the riders. The Italians are worried, that's for sure now. The French are a little bit frustrated. And in fact, it's a marvellous piece of blocking being done by Axel Merckx, because he's just going with the moves and trying to stop everybody else getting involved. That's Andrew Taffy who's on the front, pointing at Merckx. No good. And it's no good telling you about the guys behind either, because they're Swiss. And so they're very frustrated, the Italians. They've made a big mistake, as they often do in World Championships, despite the fact that there's a big bonus for the riders if they can get the world champion back home to Italy. And we've gone back up to the leading group, which still remaining very compact. Puccini and Giannetti sitting at the back and sharing a bottle together, while the other man setting the pace and continuing to do so. Pascal Chanteur just behind him. Ferragato in third slot. Well, everybody in this breakaway clearly aware of what the instruction has to be to Oscar Camazin, and they're not prepared to help him while he keeps up such a high speed, because they know riding at this speed there's going to be very little improvement from the peloton behind. Marks talking to his team car down below. And Bjarne Riis of Denmark, who was didn't really make it a secret. He started to train with determination again in preparation for the World Championships. He's not in the breakaway. Two of his teammates are, but they're not doing anything to contribute to the pace. So there's still a lot of tactical cards to be played here at the moment. Since his great Tour de France victory, Bjarne Riis has become a major star in Denmark, where he went home to civic celebrations before transferring to the Olympic Games, where he rode. Had a lot of bad luck actually. He was puncturing in the Atlanta race. Claudio Chiappucci starting now to drive as hard as he can to try and shut down, try and do something, because they went through with that 2 minutes 41 seconds advantage at the end of the 11th lap, or 10th lap rather. And now Chiappucci wants all the help he can get. It's all going to be left to the Italians. I think they've worked it out that nobody's going to help them, because very often in the World Championship the teams tend to block out the Italians as well. They come here with no illusions at all, the Italians. They want the victory, and they've even said they wanted 3 men in the breakaway of every move, which they haven't really succeeded in doing yet today. We had that long breakaway by just 2 riders, Solomon and the Russian rider Zinchenko, and then the breakaway went. Rominger looking quite happy with the first, off on a lunch break at the moment. And the Spanish riders, we haven't seen hardly anything of Abraham Olano, apart from when he punctured. On the climb again, and to the cowbells he knows so well, Camazin sets the pace. And the pace behind sharpening up yet again. The Italians are beginning to show signs of distress here, as they are trying now to chase down that breakaway. I'm not too sure what Ferragato will be thinking of all of this, because the man has proved himself this year that he is very much a potential winner up there in the group, unless he himself has sent an instruction back to say, I need some help. But certainly he's a winner in his own right now. Still Camazin. There's Puccini, number 45, for the last 2 years, the champion of Switzerland on the road, but that's really more or less the only race he seems to win. It's a title, in fact, that Giannetti has never managed to win, although he's been close. He was third, I think, on 2 occasions, Giannetti. But he's never managed to take home the award. But I think he'd probably trade his national Swiss jersey, if he ever had one, as a champion, for a rainbow jersey of world champion, and at the moment he's looking very, very good indeed. The clock has started up on the left of our screen there, you can see on the finishing line area. So the peloton will be able to glance up and see their deficit, although the breakaway won't know. There's Bunyo going through, Taffy, they're all still there. Laurent Brochard, number 29, not looking anything the worse for his brief visit to the road at the feeding station. Max Chandry also up near the front half of the peloton. In that white jersey. Little banner on the left there, cheering Taffy. Another man who is at last beginning to show us the winning form we all know he's capable of. And it looks as though Max is gritting his teeth at the back of the group as it goes over the top. There's a split in the peloton, is there? Minute 42. Well, the gap has come down quite dramatically because of all this furious activity here, largely by the Italians as we come through towards the end of the lap. And I think word has reached the front group that there is a change of pace and ideas at the back because the gap is closing. Number 91 is Peter Mola. Kamazin has got himself back onto the front. Pascal Hervé, as we come towards the end of lap number 12 now. Still the same 12 men. Lap number 9 was the D-Day lap for many of them. We've still got Kamazin doing a lot of the work. Now the boys in blue. And the fact that all of the Italians have got to the front now, and Rominger still taking his lunch break, but having to hang on to a flying train here of Italians who treated the crowd here a couple of days ago, yesterday rather, at the Under-23 Championship. 4 Italian riders taking 4 places in a magnificent team time trial in the Under-23 race, which was over 10 laps of this circuit. There's the gap, down to 1 minute and 28 seconds now. The boys in blue. I rather like the new Italian strip, I must say. Very simple, not a complicated design, and very easy to pick out. So from a commentator's viewpoint, first class. Back with the leaders, Ferragati, the lone Italian. We've never seen Ferragato do any work in this breakaway, but they haven't had a lot of chance with the work that Kamazin's been doing. Hervé, undermarked, Ferragato, Johan Museeuw, winner of the World Cup last year, right up as leader this year, but it'll be a nervous last couple of races. Although, by the way, Museeuw has said he's not going to ride the last 2 races, and if Ferragato scores, then he will take the World Cup. He's also said, rather surprisingly, Johan Museeuw, that he's looking to retire. He's getting a little bit tired of riding a bicycle. But as one Belgian journalist said, he always says that at this time of the year. Well, he's in the breakaway and he hasn't done much, and it is his birthday, so that's a nice incentive today. And Belgium could do with a world champion, let's face it. Eddy Merckx was the greatest, there's no question of that, but what happened after Merckx retired was the sport lost a lot of its publicity and excitement, and wasn't a great sport for a few years, but the Belgians beginning to show signs, especially with Museeuw and Axel Merckx, of reliving the old halcyon days. Well, if you were to give medals away or match of the day awards, then I think Oscar Kamazin would receive one today for the work he's done in this breakaway. Every lap's a bonus from now on, I would think, for Oscar. He has done so much work. Look at his face now. Ferragato's on his shoulder. On his wheel is Pascal Hervé. At the back here is Klaus Mola, who would dearly have liked to see Bjarne Riis come up at any minute and take some of the pressure off, possibly. Pascal Chanteur. When the shoulders go down like that, it looks to me as though Pascal might be feeling the pace a little bit now. And this hill, it is an actual brute of a climb, is getting longer every time they go up it. A very good circuit indeed, this, and I think generally liked by the riders. Puccini, number 45, on the wheel of Ferragato. Over the top of the climb. Riders now on the 13th lap of 15. The last gap we had was approximately 1.5 minutes, so they've lost a little bit this breakaway. At this stage of the race, though, I suspect it's not a time to panic. It's a time to consolidate the breakaway. Cameron's in, whether it's up or down, it doesn't matter. He's still in the front. And there's a workmanlike group here, which has got clear of the peloton this time. It's now down to just on a minute. A minute and 2 seconds, and the Italians are moving their men forward. There's 3 Italians certainly in this split, led by the big man himself, Gianni Bugno. Nicola Bartoli is there. A minute 2 is the gap, so it's looking a little bit precarious for that breakaway of 12 now. And they can't really afford now to let Cameron continue to make the pace. They're going to have to give him a hand, or they're going to be swept up. And I think 1 or 2 names in that breakaway are not going to want to like the thought of letting back into the race now some of the top names, least of all the Italian riders. And Bugno, I think, has his tail up right now. They're saying now 58 seconds, so it continues to fall. The blue train is on the front. Gianni Bugno, Claudio Chiappucci, these are the riders now who've got themselves into the front group. A little word in the ear of Gianni. And David Rebellin is the other rider who's trying to come up and give them a hand too. Another man who's developed really well this year and found himself. He's in second place at the moment. Looked like a winner of the Giro d'Italia for a long way, and then he cracked up near the end. But even so, he became quite a star in this year's Tour of Italy. There he is in the yellow crash helmet. Again, you see, riders have the right to wear or not to wear crash helmets, and the Italians particularly seem to have chosen not to wear them. But they've got themselves a team time trial now. They've shut out the rest of the competitors in the chase group in the World Championships. This could fall away if the French too certainly have Richard Virenque, I think Luc Leblanc, and certainly Laurent Jalabert up in this group. Laurent Dufaux is also here. Now the Swiss are marauding at the back, allowing the Italians to do their work but not offer them any help. It's a tactic which we often see in professional racing, whereas the riders trying to slow down the break never mix in with the attacking move, and we often see amateur riders trying to get in second wheel or third wheel and causing a lot of nervous reaction from riders who start shouting and screaming at one another. Professionals tend to let the chasers get on with the work, and they sit out and watch, and if they do pick up the breakaway, usually try a counter-attack. Fundit marked in the white jersey of Germany, Ferragato in the blue of Italy. Nobody showing to be really weak in this breakaway, I have to say that, although 1 or 2 tend to be struggling on the climb, and I feel a good attack by somebody might split this into 2 groups straight away. But at the moment, they're all content to follow Cameron, although I'm sure by now they have been told that the gap by this chase group is now only a minute behind them. There's Puttini, 2 times champion of Switzerland. Chanteur, Ferragato, Museu. Well, he's done nothing at all in that breakaway, Museu. Gianni Bugno brings them around the corner, licking his lips. Superbly talented rider, twice a world champion. And Moreno Argentin, I think early on I did tell you Moreno Argentin, Bugno was champion in Colorado Springs, but of course it was Moreno Argentin who's recently retired. And Bugno much more recently a world champion, of course, because he picked up his titles in 1991 and 1992 in Germany and in Spain. Now then, let me explain the tactics to you, he's saying. It's quite simple, work together and bring back the breakaway. And quite clearly they haven't got any faith in Andrea Ferragato, because all of the Italian teams are into the action at the front of, all the Italian riders rather, in the action at the front of that group. This is the leading group, it's still going strong, but sooner or later somebody is going to have to attack, I think. Riders now approaching nearly 6 hours in the saddle. It's time to start the next phase of the World Championship. And it could well be that it is now about to commence here. But the Swiss are the riders who are doing all of the tempting to try and reorganise this leading breakaway. Hundekmarkt went with them on the right and is going to continue, being chased by Johan Museo. So Kai Hundekmarkt attacks. Those big legs pushing a heavy gear, but the man who's quite clearly been paying attention right throughout this breakaway, despite the fact he hasn't been working, is Johan Museo. He's caught the wheel of Hundekmarkt. He's looked over to see if anybody else is going to join them. There's a counter-attack coming. I think it's Hervé, and somebody on his wheel. Might be Ferragato. We'll check him out as they come up. It's Ferragato, in fact, who is now the first man to join. Oh, there he is. Hervé was just in the crowd line. He's on the wheel and it's all over. Gianetti comes across. Camazin, Ferragato. But they have split the group here. There's only 7 of them left. Poutini is gone. The Danish riders have both gone. Peter Menert and Klaus Moller. So they've been dropped on the climb and might get back on the descent. You may remember the very, very plucky riding by Linda Jackson in the women's race. What an excellent race that was, won by Barbara Heeb. But in fact, Linda was in that 3-woman breakaway, constantly dropped on the climbs and clawed her way back up each time, and deservedly took the bronze medal in the end for Canada. Just award for a very determined lady. And this is another attack, and this time Museo is now trying to hurt them as Hervé's job to chase him down, followed by Hundekmarkt. And Museo, having counted the first move, is now trying to hit them again on the second climb. And look at this now, Museo's staring at them and saying, well, come and get me. And they have. And a good time to attack is on the capture. Hundekmarkt, he must be feeling very, very strong today to go again. But Hundekmarkt is gone. Now these riders have eliminated not half of the break, but not far off. I think it's 5 men who have gone. And this counter-attacking is going to prevent them getting back on. Hundekmarkt keeps going, looks pretty cool. Pascal catches up with him, stage winner in the Giro this year, as well as the Tour du Pont. And leader briefly. Mauro Gianetti is having a little dig on the road now. He's going to see if all of these attacks has weakened anybody, as Gianetti quickly shadowed by Hundekmarkt. Ferragato tries desperately to latch on over the top of the Crespida. Well, this is about 4 kilometres or so, slightly more from what will be the finishing line. But at the end of the lap at the moment. Here comes the chase group, and that series of counter-attacks in the breakaway has pulled out a few more seconds. 65 seconds now over the top of the climb. There, and sitting at the back, Laurent Brochard. I'm not sure whether he was in there all the time, whether he's actually coming on from the second group on the road. Down into town. 65 seconds the gap. And that's Poutini in the white crash helmet, so he may have got back to the breakaway. This looks like Claudio Chiappucci now. Well, this is turning out to be quite a race here, because we often do see breakaways go clear in the World Championships, but they really are just for the ride rather than the victory. But I think there's a real sense now in that chase group that the breakaway may have already have gone in this year's World Championship. But it's turning out to be quite a tough chase back. Ferragato. Fabrizio Guidi, I think it is, sitting at the back. And this, a very smooth, fast descent, good road surface, nice and wide. Of course, those white lines feared by all. It had been raining down here, but thankfully it isn't. Still Grady at the back, and Ferragato, his teammate, further up the line. The Italians are now feeling a little bit frustrated. This is a typical move by Claudio, who goes too quickly for anybody to keep up with him, and then he looks over his shoulder and says, "Where have you all gone?" And now he's going to have to wait for them to come and join him, because there's no way he's going to cross the gap on his own. And as we speak, it is Grady who's setting the pace. Puccini, so there's been a little regrouping here. Museu in the third slot. World Cup winner last year. The 2 previous years to that he finished second in the World Cup. He's currently the leader in the World Cup, which isn't bad for a man who keeps complaining about the World Cup, because he doesn't have a sponsor. There's no prizes apparently, and one can understand his complaints. This is the breakaway still the same names that have been out there for an awful long time. Thinned a little bit, missing now the 2 Danish riders and the very heroic Camazin. They've gone. 3, 6, 7 Italians. There were 12 starters for Italy, 7 are chasing and 2 are in the breakaway. So we can get some idea now as Farazin starts the pacemaking. Gianni Farazin. Behind him is Rebellin. And there we saw, just picked up there, one of the Danish riders from the breakaway, so they'll begin to take encouragement from that as they're starting to wipe out the riders who were dropped from the leading group. Still around about the 1 minute the difference, back into the feed again as we now head on towards the end of lap number 13. Dropped also is Inigo Cuesta Lopez from Spain. We hadn't seen him for a little while, which really means now we have 7 riders in the lead in the World Championship as they come towards the end of the 13th lap. That means they've done 218 kilometres, about 136 miles under the legs, or under the wheels and in the legs today. Another 40 kilometre, nearly 41 kilometres an hour this lap as they go through, led by Fabrizio Guidi, Hervé, Undertmark, Gianetti, Puccini, Museo and Ferragato. They are the only riders left now in this group. There's no more the pacemaker. He's gone and done his stuff because his 2 teammates with the better reputation are still in that lead group. Clearly the Italians are not happy with Guidi and Ferragato being in the breakaway. Well, with 13 laps to go, gone rather, and 2 laps remaining, surely they must be giving 2 riders a chance now. Well, certainly Grady here is not interested in the fact that his team is chasing him down as he continues. On to the first climb of the lap at Camano. Over the top at 3 kilometres on the circuit, and only a short one. Just one more time up here. Little Ferragato sitting there at the back while his teammate Grady sets the pace and keeps it nice and high. Pascal Hervé has been very impressive here, but he really is not a man to win from this quality of breakaway. He's not a sprinter for sure, and there's no real hill to crack them on and stay away until the finish, and that might be what the French are thinking as well. Time check around about 55-56 seconds. And now Grady, you see, has done all of the work on this climb, and so quite clearly he's had a chat with Ferragato, and Ferragato sitting at the back and taking advantage of the pacemaking is the Italian who may be dreaming of a rainbow jersey. And this has hurt Grady, but he's kept the pace up, and good for him. Pascal Hervé on his wheel. Kai Undertmark has looked very strong, and he countered and then caused a number of moves on the previous lap. Looked very, very strong indeed. He's having a good day, that's for sure. And you could say that the Telecom team are having a good year, couldn't you? First and second in the Tour de France with Bjarne Riis and Jan Ullrich. And still Grady continues to set the pace. Just one more time up this mountain, and that's what it must feel like right now. Pascal Hervé just keeping his concentration. Undermarked, not really a climber, but can certainly produce some good rides on a circuit designed for the strong man, I think, rather than the pure climber, certainly. The crowd have been cheering now on this climb for just over 5 hours and 40 minutes. Camera switching back. Still Bugno. Still setting the pace. It's strange, isn't it, to see an Italian doing his best to keep the breakaway in the lead, and another Italian doing his best to bring them back into the pack. And there's the switch as we go back up now to Grady. And I think Grady has finally decided he's going to have to slow down, and Pascal Hervé is itching to get up onto his shoulder, but not too willing to get into the lead. I think he's going to find himself in there, like it or not, very shortly, because Grady is beginning to slow. We're now slightly over 220 kilometres into the race, the 252 schedule, so just on 20 miles left to go, if you prefer miles, 32 kilometres. Which means around about 40 minutes still to ride. And this breakaway may well have decided this race even yet, because the Italians are having an awful job and they're committing a lot of strength with a lot of big hitters back there, and they're not getting up. Johan Museeuw sits at the back, about a length off, just sitting up there and soft pedalling as he went over the top of the Crespira. There's the hairpin bend. Climbing on the right, not quite so difficult on the left. But the gap, you can see the relationship now. It's hard to believe that was in fact a 58-second gap. So it may well have come down a little bit. But there's an attack here gone on the break, and this is Johan Museeuw who's gone. Now Museeuw is making his move on the penultimate lap. It's a long way to go for the man we usually consider as a strong sprinter at the end of a tough race. But Museeuw has sat at the back for the whole of this breakaway, and now he's giving it some real stick here. He must have sensed that main field, or the chase group rather, is closing in rapidly. It's time to have a new selection. And so the World Cup holder and the World Cup leader, Johan Museeuw of Belgium, has launched an attack now. Has he split the field, or will they get across? Here comes the counter move. Mauro Gianetti sits at the back. Kai Untermark, number 76. Pascal Hervé, and I think a little bit of cracking there by the rider Fabrizio Guidi. Big chainring, little sprockets, and this is a power now, a power climb by Johan Museeuw, but he's looked over his shoulder. He's seen he has shaken out a couple of riders, but the others look as though they're going to reach him. And the first one's going to be Mauro Gianetti, who's now dug in very deep. 100 marks got his wheel. And Ferragato is the rider who's tacked on the back. So all of the work done on the climb by Grady for Ferragato, and he's still on the back, and they're coming across. But Grady looks as though he's gone. Museeuw now waiting to see just how many have answered the call. In fact, it looks as though only one, because this is Gianetti who's been allowed to get clear over the top of the climb. Gianetti powerhouses across. Gianetti comes across. Johan Museeuw takes his wheel with ease. Now normally Johan would look over and check to see if anybody else is coming, but I think it was a little bit of a shock to him that he's gone through and he's going to work with Mauro Gianetti. Well, that in fact was an unlucky change of camera there, because this is Andrea Ferragato, not Mauro Gianetti. And the two Italians in a little bit all at sea now. Well, this has not been a race for the Italians, has it? The two Italians in the breakaway tried to make the move. They've been shaken out by First of all, Johan Museo, and almost overshooting there, Mauro Gianetti. 32 years of age. He's got all the experience you can imagine. 10 seasons as a pro. In fact, he's racing his 11th year this year as a professional. Mauro Gianetti, not one of the big winners in the world. He's probably won around about 10 races in those 10 years, the 10 full seasons he's ridden. But he certainly has produced some good rides. So Mauro Gianetti, 4th in Flèche Wallonne, 3rd in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He won Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year. And now riding himself back into the form, which he hopes will carry him through to the end of term Japan World Cup, where he said he is riding that. Well, that was a good move by Museo. The Belgians have waited a long time to cheer a winner, and I think if he stays away, he won't feel too worried about Mauro Gianetti. But riding, of course, Gianetti doesn't jump him on the last climb of the Crespira, because if he does, then of course there'll be no chance for Johan to use his sprint. But he made a complete, well, I would like to say idiot of himself actually in the recent Paris Tours race, because he led out so early. He had no chance of getting any World Cup points. He faded, of course, in the big rush for the line, completely made a mistake and got nothing. And that, on a day when he could have stitched up the World Cup, he completely threw it away and handed it back to Bartoli and Ferragato, still within a chance of winning the World Cup and taking it away from Museo. Museo having already said he's no wish to ride in Lombardy or in Japan. Mind you, he didn't really want to ride in the World Championships. He announced his retirement. But there he is, he's riding, and he's now in with a real chance on his birthday, let's remember, when he's 31 years of age, of winning the world title. Last world champion was Rudy Darnans in Utsunomiya in Japan in 1990. And I had the pleasure of being the first person to him with a television camera, and I said, "Congratulations, Rudy, you're the world champion," to which his response was to burst out crying, and I don't blame him. I think we were all crying in the end. He got so emotional. So Johan Museo seems to have refound his enthusiasm for the sport. Only a few days ago he'd lost. And I take my hats off to the Swiss this week. They have ridden to the occasion. They've been in the action and given the Swiss fans something to shout about at every event in the World Championship Series. And now we've got the big one, the blue ribbon of world cycling, the World Road Race Championship. And again, they've got a Swiss rider in at the kill. I think they'll be feeling a little unsure he can take the rainbow jersey. They will hope he can jump away on the last climb if they stay clear. This is what's left of the breakaway. And Puttini there sitting at the back having a drink and enjoying watching the three other riders in the chase. They're far from safe, by the way. The bunch is still... This is the return of the two Italians. Ferragato, who is doing the pacemaking at the moment. Well, this isn't he. This is actually Andre Taffy who's coming up here. These are men from the back who are joining the front. This is a complete change around here, because they are reaching what was left of the breakaway. And this is quite amazing in the end, because this is a total switch around here. So there are changes at the back, and very shortly that breakaway, I think, is going to be wiped out by the chase group, because the Italians are reaching the quarry. They will know then that there are other Italians, Ferragato, have been washed away from the lead, and they will also have been told, no doubt, by Ferragato or Grady that these two have gone clear. So Mauro Gianetti, a local man and also, of course, a native of Switzerland, is going to get a lot of applause here now all the way around. While Johan Museo, the winner of Paris-Roubaix this year, a controversial end indeed, yes, because there were three riders on the same team. We can't call it a sprint finish because they decided the order across the line, and it went like this. It went a win for Johan Museo, Gianluca Bortolami, who later crashed in the summer and broke his elbow in the Giro d'Italia, and in third place Andrea Taffy, who has since come good and got his first big classic win. And that was the order in Paris-Roubaix way back in April, and many Americans who joined us at World Cycling Productions on a cycling holiday were there to witness it, and we had a great time. Well, you won't find Gianetti now reducing the work rate. This is a man, a silver medal would be a good one. That was a brief glimpse, I think, of Fabio Grady, who's just sailed backwards. This is the breakaway now being driven on as the Italians have changed their colours at the front. Andrea Tafi is up there now. And of that breakaway, the Italians have still got to do a lot of work to pull back these two. The gap is on for sure. Mauro Gianetti rode the World Championship for the first time in 1988, and he finished 5th. In the same year, he in fact finished 7th in the Tour of Switzerland. But in his first 3 years as a professional, he only ever won one event, and that was in his first season back in 1966. That's 1986, I'm sorry. He's not quite as old as that. There's nothing to, when you look at the faces of these two, they're telling us nothing at all, are they? They're both climbing very, very strong indeed. Last big climb now of the Crespera, and then it's on to the finish. And finally, they'll hear the bell, and it's 1 lap to go. 1 lap of 16.8 kilometres, just over 10 miles. Taffy goes through unmarked. It looks like it's goodbye to Pascal Hervé. He's got nothing here. Puttini is gone. Here's the gap. Kai Undermarkt, who finished 4th in the World Championships of Stuttgart, but now looks as though he's not going to be able to control affairs here. And Andrea Tafi, determined to reach those leaders, has come through, and he's still got a fresh pair of legs, it seems, on the inside ring, but a lot of fight here as Andrea Tafi now starts to move clear in pursuit in 3rd place. What a great climax this is going to be to the World Championships. Andrea Tafi, the rider I first saw win stage when I'd never heard of him in the Tour of the Americas a few years ago. And now, this year, the winner of Paris-Brussels, his first big classic win. He started out as a pro back in 1989 when he won a stage of the Tour of Luxembourg. And now Richard Virenque for the first time. The French haven't had things going their own way at all in this World Championship, yet the strong men have all been there watching and waiting. Now they've seen Pascal Hervé in trouble. They're going to have to do something about it. All of the cheers, not surprisingly, reserved now for the local man, Mauro Gianetti. Johan Museo, his only worry at the moment, and it's a big one, because Museo will feel very confident he can beat Gianetti in the sprint. Although in fairness, Museo not the great sprinter as you get older, and he's a day older today because it's his birthday. You tend to lose your speed and you become more of a stayer. The stamina takes over and you're a better long distance cyclist. It happened to Sean Kelly as well, when he wasn't the great sprinter over the last few years of his career, but he often won races by breaking away. Over the top of the Crespera again. Here's the style of Andrea Tafi. Another 30-year-old in the race. A man who was given the 3rd place he didn't want in Paris-Roubaix now comes up, and look at the gap. He is flying over the top here. 22 seconds down, and Tafi could be the surprise world champion if he gets across. He's obviously strong. Kai Undermarkt again enjoying a world championship of quality. He goes over in 4th place. Remember, it's one more climb in the Crespera yet. And in fact, a Frenchman here, is it Pascal Hervé? It looks like it might be. Hervé and Puttini. But that breakaway has been blown across the hillsides here at Lugano and is now taking on. This is Ferrigard, who is slipping away. And he's lost almost a minute. Michele Bartoli here in front of Laine Jalabert. And it looked as though the little rider there for Spain was Escartin, who's trying to pedal across the gap in third slot. Bartoli and Jalabert looking pretty cool. Richard Virenque is also there. Bunyo. Bobby Julich has got into this very, very hot selective group. So good ride by Bobby Julich, the leader of the USA team in the event today. The other riders in with the orders to make sure Julich could be in at the kill, and he might well be yet, because that group is closing down. Penultimate descent back down into Lugano. Museo sets the pace. A little bit less confidence on the descents, Mauro Gianetti, than the Belgian rider. That's the situation. Taffy is coming. 100 mark has been passed by Taffy. And these last 2 years, Andrea Taffy has turned him from a hot domestique into a team leader. Here he is. Must be feeling now there's a medal awaiting him next time around. And will it be gold that he can just get across this gap? He's giving it a lot of heavy speed down here. He's not riding the corners too well, I must say. And he must know these roads pretty good now, having done it 14 times so far today. So there's Gianetti, flying proudly the white cross of the Swiss flag as the top pros ride for their countries. And quite often it causes split loyalties, because any other day they might even ride on the same team. But on this one day they ride for the country, and they're not expected to help out teammates of their trade team. This is the finishing straight that, if they stay away, Museo will see. A difficult straight to judge. It's not completely straight, there's another kink in it, but it's a kilometre to go. It's a sprinter's finish, but it calls for absolutely inch-perfect judgment, otherwise you'll run out of steam before the line. So it's best not to mention Paris Tours to Museo right now, because he blew that one in a big way. And this is the chase by Taffy. He's now in the same straight. He'll begin to see the little gaggle of cars around the two leaders. Andrea Taffy won a stage of the Tour of Britain back in 1990. In the summer of the same year, he won 2 stages of the Tour of America, or Americas, down in Florida. Now, the move from France, is this it? Because they've got themselves organised with Virenque and Jalabert. But I'm not so sure about that. But there is the winner of the Tour de France in at the selection now too. Bjarne Riis has got up here. Well, they're leaving it late, but it could be a grandstand finish. Approaching the finishing line, the bell this time. At this moment, just about 17 kilometres left to ride. As they come up to the line, just on 6 hours of riding, we're going to get a time check now across the board. Huge cheer for Mauro Gianetti. Johan Museo is back, probably tingling with excitement now. The chase down coming from the Italian Andrea Taffy. And a reorganisation of the chase group here. They've slowed it right down. They're going to throw this away if they continue like this. Escartin dancing away on the wheel of Jalabert, who looks a little bit frustrated. Bjarne Riis is up into third place through the feed here, but the gap is still big, at least between this group and the two leaders. Taffy is the one who could give us the problem. Well, not give us the problem, I suppose, but certainly give the Swiss-Belgian tandem a little bit of trouble. 1 minute 6 seconds. That was Hervé goes through. They are still caught in between. Now this is the group here, led by Jalabert, Bartoli. Romigan is still in here too. 1:21 to Bartoli. Bobby Julich leads over the best of the rest. A great ride by Bobby. So Julik riding with superb confidence after that superb ride he put up in the Tour of Spain. 22 seconds to Taffy, and Gianetti looks over his shoulder. They must know. Museo also looks over his shoulder just to make sure, because it's no good asking the rider alongside you. He'll probably tell you lies anyway. They're on the climb of Camano. Here comes Taffy. The Italians have twigged on. There's still a chance. Excuse me, sir, the barriers. I got you. And that man should play for Britain in the Rugby Championship. And so, Taffy, will he reach him? What a great finish for Andrea Taffy if he could. Richard Varennes setting the pace. Barty, little man behind him. This climb, I wonder. I don't think Gianetti will go on this one, but he's got to go on the next one. On the Crespera, if he wants to beat Museo. Otherwise, it'll go back. Advantage Museo. Museo knows that he's not going to offer any help at all here to Gianetti, because he knows if he gets in front of him, Gianetti will probably jump in from behind. So this has been a fine ride by Museo, whichever way it goes, you know, because here he's ridden a crafty ride in the breakaway. He used no energy at all. He found himself in the move. A lot of young cyclists could take a lesson from Johan Museo today. This is the chase. Now he looks straight ahead. He might even see them now, you know. On around about 20 seconds. 24 is confirmed. So in fact he's being pegged here by a fine piece of riding by Mauro Gianetti, who's climbing very, very well today. This is still another attack here coming from Varennes. Axel Merckx has got his wheel. And Merckx has done a great job for Museo. He's blocked whenever he could every attack, while showing for me the strength that might well put him into a medal slot should the breakaways be caught. Bugno is there as well. Over the top of a Camano. Sitting right back on the saddle, Mauro Gianetti goes round the roundabout, where the graffiti artists have had a field day. Further down the slope, Gianni Bugno, Richard Varennes, Axel Merckx are going clear. Bugno has also ridden well today. Even so, a little bit frustrated by the way it's worked out for the Italians. Gianetti never even asked for the help of Johan Museo. He knows the situation. He knows Museo will not help him. Gianetti will be seen as the climber, Museo as the sprinter. Into his inside ring now, Museo. The need for the big ring not quite so necessary, because it was needed for the attack that broke up the breakaway. But now it's a matter of conserving just enough strength to take the world title if Taffy doesn't zoom up at any moment. I think it's down to 3 now. I don't think anybody else will reach them. Taffy, even his chances are beginning to look a little bit thin because he's not coming quick enough. And here, the Italian is ready with his flag for Andrea Taffy. But I think the gap is opening up, and it's all because of the climbing of Mauro Gianetti. And what a great crowd this has been. Cheering the riders every inch of the way. The organisation will feel they've put on a good show this week, and they certainly have done just that. They've been blessed with very good weather on the whole. But the riders, I know, particularly Johan Museo, doesn't like the season going quite so long, taking the World Championships into the month of October, and the second week of October at that. They feel it's making the season just that little bit too long. I think what we're going to see in the future is riders planning their whole racing year with holiday break-offs in between. And so you'll see riders do well early on and then literally take time out for 3 or 4 weeks and then start to come back and build up for the world title events. Others will ride the Tour de France and forget the World Championships. But I think that's the only way these riders are going to survive now what is a tremendously long year at the top level of racing, a sport which has now become even harder than before, I think. This has been a very, very fast championship today. The average speed isn't going to be far away for the whole distance of 40 kilometres an hour. There is Taffy. He's forced to climb on his big chain wheel. But I don't think he's going to catch up now. Look at the clock. Maybe the French will claw their way back into this, but I don't think they're going to get up to the leader now. This is Richard Virenque. Bugno can't really, can he? Not when Taffy is still up there, and he's just seen, I think it's Michele Bartoli rejoin, so the two Italians now, as Richard Virenque nips over the cobbles. And it looks as though Richard again is going to fly the French hope in the World Championship. He won a medal in it last year. No, 2 years ago actually. The time flies. He won it in Italy when he got the bronze medal behind Claudio Chiappucci and Luc Leblanc, who became the world champion. Then he had a rather sad year because his sponsors pulled out of the sport. However, that's another story. This is the story of this year's World Championship now, with Mauro Gianetti. Never afraid to work. Johan Museo looks as though he's trying to dodge the workload even on the descent here. I don't think Johan is riding that well, but he knows if he can contain Gianetti, he should produce the power sprint that would take away a rainbow jersey at a time when he would least expect it. No finer day, of course, on your birthday. And an acceleration now by Museo. Not exactly waiting for Gianetti. Well, he is now. He's sat down. Gianetti takes a break. But Museo not wanting to do a lot of work here. I haven't seen a team car come up, but I would presume that somebody, Eddy Merckx particularly, would have told Museo the chase by Taffy looks as though it's foundering. Heading down. It's going to be a very nervous finish now, especially for Mauro Gianetti, who hasn't been able to do anything at all about Johan Museo. Have no signs and no further news on the whereabouts of Andrea Taffy, so that's an indication that he has held or lost ground. We know there is a group coming up. Virenque is in there, so too Axel Merckx, Gianni Bugno. No further news of them at the moment either. But now they are saying if 54 seconds now is the gap to Andrea Taffy, so he's out. He may well get the bronze medal, but he's out of the race for gold, and the championship of the world now lies between these two, and Johan Museo, I think, can afford just that slight chance of dreaming. He checks over his shoulder. 55 seconds to Taffy, a minute 12 to the chasers after that. Gianni Bugno, Axel Merckx, Richard Virenque in that chase group still. Michele Bartoli was the rider we saw latch on. And there's a little bit of a time check coming from the neutral service Mavic. Well, both riders understand French, so they'll both know the gap. And immediately inspires Museo to do a little bit of the pacemaking. So Museo was the man who had a dig on the climb of the Camano. Gianetti was the man who was inspired enough to bring him back on his own in the end. It had seemed at first there was going to be a group, and it wasn't. Gianetti was the only one to reach him. This is the chase group. Bartoli, Virenque, Merckx. Bugno does not appear to be here. The gaggle of cars up ahead, I think these riders are catching Andrea Taffy. There's the confirmation of this group. I think Taffy is just up the road. He is. So Andrea Taffy is being caught. Can he hang on for that bronze medal? We've gone back to the leaders now and licking his lips in anticipation. Johan Museo of Belgium. The two most recent world champions from Belgium, Claude Quequillion and Rudy Darnens. Quequillion winning at Barcelona in 1984. Gianetti, if only, is what he will be thinking. He can be the world champion. The most revered jersey of them all, the arc-en-ciel, the rainbow jersey. And winning it when you live very close to this circuit will be something really special. But I think, although my heart may be with Giannetti, I think it's going to be a near impossibility. Little tap there on Richard Virenque from Mikola Bartoli, because Bartoli must not be seen, of course, to be catching up with his teammate Andrea Tappi, although I think he's been doing a fair bit of the chasing in that group. The Italians deciding that if you can't win the gold, then you race for yourselves and take what you can, by the look of it, because there's Bartoli now taking across Virenque and Merckx, two pretty dangerous riders, to the back wheel of Andrea Tappi. So now there are 4 chasers and 2 leaders. And Bartoli also developing now into being a great rider. The Italians seem to have so many of them. They've virtually dominated the classics this year. And so in the lead, Mauro Giannetti. And here's Eddy Merckx again now. He must be feeling he could be managing the world champion. And he'll be talking to Museo in Flemish, and I doubt whether Giannetti will understand. Still, we have the 4 chasers, and let's not forget that Eddy Merckx' son Axel is in that chase group, and Merckx must be feeling very, very proud indeed. Merckx himself a world champion, one of the youngest ever as both amateur and professional. Just the last climb, the nervous moment for Johan Museo. He doesn't know quite how strong, and neither do we for that matter, Giannetti is. The Crespera could decide this championship. At this stage of the World Championship back in 1953, there were no such worries for Fausto Coppi. He was already 6 minutes ahead of the rest. And just about 50 riders spread around the course here in Lugano remaining in this World Championship today. That's all. The sort out coming around about lap number 9 when the first breakaway built up, and then the last couple of laps have been vicious. Attack and counter-attack. There's a quality chase group, we've seen it, but I don't think it's going to get up to these two now. Merckx knows that he's got the charge here of a man likely to take the World Championship. His son, here he is, number 53, is in the chase group. Nobody expects Axel to be as great as his dad. That would be impossible to imagine. I don't think anybody in the world will be as great as his dad was ever again. But they do want to see him succeed. It's been a big responsibility to carry the name of Merckx on the programmes of races around the world. This year, he's had a win, and he's starting to show the quality of a real bike rider. But right now he's playing the ace role of defending for Johan Museo, who is now going to keep control of Mauro Giannetti on this climb. Mauro really could do with a little bit more spring in his legs and accelerations, because if he just sets tempo like this on the Crespera, then Johan Museo will have no trouble at all following his wheel. He's got to lift the pace and try and crack Museo. And Museo knows if he can just hold on to his saddle, he'll win the world title in the sprint. That's how confident he will feel now. And this is a very steady climb here by Giannetti. 53 seconds to Merckx and co. That's enough. They won't be catching these two now. Once we're over the top of the Crespera, then we're just looking at 4.5 kilometres to the finish. Giannetti took a little look at Johan Museo. I don't think his face will have given much away, but he sat back in the saddle. I think at that point he may well have resigned this race to be going down to the sprint. And if he hasn't, he's certainly conveying that impression to Johan Museo at the moment. And applause there from the helpers on the roadside as well as the spectators. They're witnessing here a great breakaway by Giannetti. Now further down the Crespera, there's a little bit of action from Bartoli. Taffy was holding on but still keeping his composed rhythm. There'll be no more effort from Johan Museo. He's got his man when he wants him, and he's going to keep him there. He knows he's got the buffer of the best part of a minute. He's too experienced a pro rider, having won stage of the Tour de France, the green jersey in the Tour de France, the World Cup, and the lead at the World Cup. He knows all about pro bike riding. He's without doubt Belgium's #1 cyclist, and he's now making a serious bid to become the world #1. And this is from a rider who announced he was going to give up cycling just a few days ago. Well, he can't give up now. Up towards the summit of the Crespera, the longest and toughest climb of the circuit. Massive crowd waiting to see who will be first up. You see the road and the nasty little drag it is up towards the summit. It's a backbreaker really. They've now climbed it 15 times, Giannetti. And is this the acceleration? No, a little bit of a lift of speed perhaps, yes, but no trouble at all for Museo. Sorry about the little bit of problem with the pictures, but that's due to interference from the helicopter signals from the motorbikes, which have been pretty good today. And this massive crowd strain forward now and they ask themselves the question, can Mauro Giannetti finish off a great World Championships for Switzerland and in fact a great cycling season for the little country as well? We'll soon know now, because the finish is not that far away. Here they come side by side, the two men who for the last 2 laps, best part of, have been partners in the World Road Race Championship. And in fact, Johan Museo took a good look at Mauro Giannetti and decided now he has no further worries on this climb, because he's continued to go forward. He's forced Giannetti on his wheel. That will do the morale the world of good as they come over the top of the Crespera. And now we're looking at 4.8 kilometres to the finish. No sign of anybody chasing through that lovely crowd that's enjoyed a brilliant World Championship. In fact, all of the World Championships here have been of extraordinary quality this year. The Swiss should be proud of themselves as organisers as well as athletes. There's an attack here and it's gone by. I think Bartoli has gone. He's been chased immediately by Axel Merckx, going round Richard Virenque is Andrea Tappi. He's still got some fight in those legs, but that is Michele Bartoli who's gone, and Merckx has gone for him. And surprisingly, Richard Virenque hasn't got the power there. He's labouring on the back wheel of a non-climber in Andrea Tappi. Remember that Virenque won the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France for a 3rd year in succession, the first time since Claudio Chiappucci that has been achieved. But Virenque now is finding the season also a little bit long. Our clock's counting down. 1 minute 1 second now to Michele Bartoli and Axel Merckx. A little bit further back to Andrea Tappi and Richard Virenque. And Virenque in fact has got the lead there over Tappi as they go through. But there's even a gap here on the way down. I did say earlier that Mauro Giannetti is not the best of descenders, and he's allowing an awful lot of gap to Johan Museo on the way down towards the line. Something Museo will have also have noted, of course. It takes a few more risks than Mauro. We saw Mauro almost overshoot earlier on a bend, on a left-hand bend it was as well. So a little bit nervous going down. There's the gaps, 1:01 to 2 chasers, 1:10 to Virenque and Tappi. Here comes a very disconsolate Jalabert, shakes his head. Well, he's seeing a World Championship slip away from him now, over 2 minutes back. But Bobby Julich is still there. Goes over at the tail of that very select 3rd group on the road now, behind the 2 leaders, and there they are. Giannetti is back, and Giannetti now is going to gamble on being number 2 rider till they spot that finish, and then will open the sprint, I suspect. Museo might have different ideas. They've got such a lead now, there is a chance they could afford to slow right down and manoeuvre each other into the position they want, but you mustn't do that for too long, because the chase group could wipe you out. Museo and Giannetti, I suspect the two respective leaders of their country teams in this year's World Championship. An incredibly successful performance, or performer rather, Johan Museeuw, now aiming to finish off terrific career as a world champion. Finish off probably the wrong word. If he does win it, he must go on. He can't retire. The Belgians wouldn't allow him to. He's just making sure that the riders behind aren't sneaking up. He's going to sit on the shoulder of Giannetti. No, he's not. Giannetti wants his back wheel. He's going to offer it to him. He mustn't think about the misjudged finish of Paris Tours. Right now, he'll have all the confidence he requires over Giannetti. He won't expect him to beat him, but you know, complacency often means the other man gets the better of you. Giannetti will be hoping for something of a miracle as he sits in the right position. Very often as you approach the finish, the top sprinters do manoeuvre the other man into the lead. They use their experience, but it seems here that Museeuw isn't worried about that. There's the kilometre. This time they really mean it. After 15 laps of the World Championship, we have done 251 kilometres. There is just one left to go now. The clock has gone through 6 hours and 22 minutes they've been in the saddle, so we're going to beat 6 hours and 24 minutes to the line, I'll guarantee it. Giannetti's done everything possible. He is such a plucky rider. He's now sitting on the wheel of Museeuw, who's looking very, very relaxed. He is still continuing to make sure that nobody sneaks up from behind, and here they come. They're approaching the kilometre. Merckx on the wheel of Bartoli. There might even be a medal here for Axel Merckx as Bartoli's done all of the pacemaking. There's the gap. It is that close. It is less than half a minute, I think. But even so, it's not going to work out now. Slower and slower. Those two riders behind are closing in. We're going to the pits. A grandstand for all of the helpers. They're going to see, and not the riders speed through snatching bottles this time, but two riders going extremely slowly towards the line, gambling everything. Giannetti will not come over Museeuw until the last possible moment, and Museeuw will just watch his every move. And Museeuw, a man who's won on the track at Paris-Roubaix. He knows all about these sorts of finishes, and he was watching at the right time as Giannetti goes for the shortest way round to the line. Giannetti now, has he got the inspiration of a Swiss rider? But no, look at the speed of Johan Museeuw. Johan Museeuw is the world champion, 1996. There is the time, 6:23:49, almost 40 kilometres an hour. The sprint not very much further down the road, being acted now by four riders, and Bartoli, Merckx, Virenque and Taffy, and it looks as though the Italians will have to be happy with the bronze, or can Merckx get off Bartoli's wheel out of this corner? This has been a great ride by Axel Merckx, but an inspired sprint by Michele Bartoli. He gets bronze for Italy. Axel Merckx a brilliant fourth. Richard Virenque fifth for France. Andrea Taffy gets sixth place for Italy. Now back to the next group here. This is the race now for seventh place. Surely Jalabert, disgusted as he may be, will try and finish this off. Bobby Julich has got the wheel of Tony Rominger here. Julich continues to become a star of the future as he now heads the line, racing for seventh place. As they come up to the line, though, it is going to be right on the line. On the inside was Laurent Jalabert from David Rebellin. And I think Tony Rominger, Julich was in there. He lost a bit in the sprint, but he might scrape into a top 12 finish. This is the sprint in slow motion now. You see the power of the true sprinter of the breakaway, Johan Museeuw. He knew at this point the world title was his. You have to feel sorry for Mauro Giannetti, but why should we? He's finished second in the World Championship. He comes from Switzerland. He comes, in fact, from a town not very far away from here in Lugano, and the silver medal shouldn't be that disappointing to him. But the gold has gone to Belgium for only the third time since Claudia Coquillon won way back in 1984. So a rainbow jersey goes home to Belgium. That'll do a lot for the sport there. The Swiss have seen a great World Championships, and there are the three medal winners. A disappointment, I think, on Mauro Giannetti's face, but he shouldn't feel too bad. The Swiss certainly won't. They've had a great time. Jaime Bruggen, the president of the Unicycliste Internationale, congratulations for Mauro Gianetti as he gives him the silver medal. The bronze will go to Nicola Bartoli. The Italians again riding a very strange race, as did the French. It all worked out so well for the Belgian winner on his birthday, Johan Museeuw. There is Nicola Bartoli. It looks a little bit disappointed, but why should he? Third in Paris-Brussels, second in the Grand Prix of Swiss this year, eighth in the Olympic Games, and of course the winner of the great classic, the Tour of Flanders, which in fact saw the demise there of Johan Museeuw. What a strange sport this is. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm Phil Liggett saying from Switzerland and the World Cycling Championships, goodbye for now, with a reminder of a great man winning the World Championship for Belgium, Johan Museeuw, and a day also when the great Eddy Merckx saw his son Axel Merckx take fourth place. Lugano has told us many tales, even better I think than when they were last here in 1953. Goodbye.